Known as one of history's greatest military leaders, Alexander the Great not only founded sprawling cities, but also spread Greek culture across the known world. Before turning 30, he had defeated armies that outnumbered his own, earning a legacy defined by unyielding resolve and boundless ambition. In this video, we'll explore the mindset that made Alexander unstoppable and how he accomplished what many thought impossible. At the height of his power, Alexander stood victorious over the mighty Persian Empire, a superpower that had once threatened Greece itself. With its vast territory spanning 3 continents and an army vastly outnumbering his own, this was a feat that seemed only possible for a god. Alexander's name would be forever etched in history, and the time had come to enjoy the spoils of his conquest. But Alexander wasn't finished. While his soldiers yearned to return home and rule their new empire, their king pushed them on, further east, into the jungles of India. For 8 years, his men had endured constant battles, harsh conditions, and near-death experiences. When they reached the banks of the river Hyphasis, they had had enough. Chaos erupted in the camp as soldiers begged their king to turn back. But Alexander's vision of limitless conquest couldn't be swayed. To him, India was believed to be the edge of the known world, and he was determined to take his empire as far as the earth would stretch. In a stirring speech, he reminded his men of all they had accomplished, comparing their efforts to those of the legendary Hercules. Sadly for Alexander, his troops were not as inspired by his words. No one could match his relentless ambition, which set him apart from others throughout history. His desire to surpass even the greatest heroes, like Achilles and Hercules, drove him forward. Though some critics argue that this hunger for more was his greatest flaw, it undeniably fueled his legendary success. Even when he fell short of his goals, his achievements were monumental. Among all of Alexander's campaigns, none were as grueling as the crossing of the Gadrosian Desert. Only the legendary Queen Semiramis had successfully led an army through these unforgiving sands. The blistering heat, the deep sand that swallowed their feet, and dwindling supplies took a toll on the soldiers. They were forced to eat their own animals, and when they found water, many drank themselves to death or spoiled the supply by fighting over it. After days of marching, they lost all sense of direction as the desert consumed every landmark. The guides admitted they were lost, and Alexander himself was suffering from a severe lung injury after being struck by an arrow. But the king maintained a brave face. When scouts appeared with news of a small spring, Alexander took a helmet filled with water, but instead of drinking it himself, he poured it onto the sand. This selfless act rallied his men, who saw their king as one of them, enduring the same hardships, sharing the same struggles, and united in their pursuit of victory. In battle, Alexander led from the front, putting himself in harm's way. His scars served as a constant reminder to his soldiers that he wasn't asking them to endure anything he wasn't willing to face himself. This bond between the king and his men made them an unstoppable force, moving as one to execute devastating strategies. From a young age, Alexander was instilled with an unshakable confidence. His mother, Olympias, claimed that he was destined for greatness. His bloodline traced back to Zeus himself. This divine heritage gave him the belief that nothing was beyond his reach. As a boy, He famously tamed the wild horse Bucephalus, a feat that no one else could manage. By recognizing that the horse was afraid of its own shadow, Alexander rode him by the sun so that the shadow would fall behind him. His father, King Philip, marveled at his son's genius, stating that Macedon was too small for Alexander. He would need to conquer the world. That unyielding confidence stayed with Alexander throughout his life. Whether facing overwhelming odds, like being outnumbered 6-1 at the Battle of Issus, or being surrounded by fierce tribal warriors, Alexander never faltered. His belief in himself and his abilities allowed him to think strategically and find solutions in even the direst situations.